So he did the Gen 1 meta. The Gen 1 meta is kind of, it's Gen 1 meta. No, Route 1 through Route 2, and of course the route by that we like the road you fight your second rival fight at. But now we're just doing Viridian Forest. Viridian Forest has a very diverse meta for an early game route, having a whopping 12 Pokemon. Which is including from Gen 1, Gen 3, the Gen 3 remix, which is basically the same Pokemon as Gen 1, Pokemon Yellow, Red, Blue, Gen 3 remakes, and of course Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. We will not be including any Pokemon introduced in Gold and Silver or Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as those Pokemon are likely introduced to that area, so or likely migrated there within a few years as well, considering that Gold and Silver take place after a few years after Red and Blue. So we'll be going over all of the Pokemon found in Viridian Forest. Of course, we can't forget about the F tier before we start. Which, of course, and before that, this will get stained the colors, or it's actually the complete opposite. Where the red of the tier list is, where the red of the color is, the worse the Pokemon get. The weaker, the worse on the tier list they get. So we'll be starting with the only F tier in Viridian Forest. Also, this video was inspired by TLZ's videos because his videos are pretty informative. First Pokemon here is Caterpie. Caterpie is one of the weakest Pokemon in the game. Has one of the worst stat totals in all of Pokemon. It gets bodied by all of the other Pokemon found in Viridian Forest, making Caterpie a solid F tier. Followed by Caterpie is Metapod. Metapod is simply the cocoon version of the cocoon states of Caterpie. So obviously, but the thing is, Metapod is only known for using Harden. Harden is not really an effective defense against Pidgeotos and Pikachus and Bulbasaurs, which are higher on the tier list. Next is Weedle. Weedle is higher than Caterpie because it can actually defend itself. Oh yes, also anime-only Pokemon are not being included because they don't appear in the anime, so that's a heads up. So Weedle obviously is pretty low on this tier list, but Weedle has the heads up over Caterpie due to being poison type. Weedle can at least defend itself, but if it doesn't poison its foes like Pidgeotto and other Pokemon, Weedle, just like Caterpie, is an easy stack. Kakuna is basically the same thing as Metapod, but it can actually poison people, so it's pretty higher. Now beginning to the C tier Pokemon. The C tier Pokemon are pretty okay Pokemon. Now beginning to the decent Pokemon to use. The C tier Pokemon are at least better than the bugs. The first tier Pokemon is Artis. Artis is one of the lower level Pokemon you find here. It's only found in the Let's Go games. But Artis isn't really anything special compared to Bellsprout or Bulbasaur, which are higher on the tier list. Artis is your standard, grass Pokemon build, with just the poison type added. Of course, it'll prevent Pokemon from eating on it, but there are Pokemon that do this build way better. The next Pokemon is Pidgey. Of course, compared to the vastly superior Pidgeotto, Pidgey is pretty weak in the server. Pidgey can still easily body the smaller tiers, but is pretty weak compared to its competition. Next Pokemon is Butterfree. Butterfree isn't that high on the list either because Butterfree has not that great stats and can probably be bodied by Pidgeotto pretty easily. Its lack of more defensive options compared to Beedrill, which is a poison type, which of course makes Butterfree Butterfree's much more docile nature compared to Beedrill makes it even an easy foe to beat. The only B tier Pokemon, the two B tier Pokemon is Bellsprout and Beedrill. Both of these Pokemon have very great poison defenses, but isn't really make for big defense. Bellsprout is another grass build, but it is much more different than Artis. Bellsprout is more of a hiding Pokemon. Of course, Bellsprout is a plant, carnivorous plant, and of course probably eats Weedles and Caterpies, and Scraps, but it isn't really such a great build, and there are Pokemon, and of course evolutions that have done it better. Beedrill is basically the strongest bug type build in Viridian Forest. Viridian Forest is known for the early bug types. Beedrill is a poison type, so it can defend itself. But Beedrill has pretty weak stats, so we can't really put him higher than B tier. Now we go into the A to the S tiers. These Pokemon are pretty good at out of the high tiers. There are one high tier, Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto is a great aerial build. But the problem is Pidgeotto can't really can really body most of the builds in this server, except for one, and it's pretty hard to body. It can body most of these weaker builds easily, such as Pidgey, Butterfree, Weedle, and Caterpie, and could probably easily beat Butterfree, which is a much weaker build than Pidgeotto is. Then we have the S tier Pokemon. Next is versus Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is one of the few S tier Pokemon. First of all, it is not because it's a starter, that's because it's the best out of the grass poison builds of the early game. Bulbasaur learns the Weed Seed very early. Bellsprout and also Bulbasaur also learns learns Vine early as well, just like Bellsprout. Basically making Bellsprout not that really viable in some parts of Viridian Forest, where Bulbasaur's out. Bulbasaur can also can photosynthesis just like Artis can, and can basically AFK without anyone attacking. Pidgey won't attack them because of poison, because Bulbasaur is also part poison type, and can also use Weed Seed on most of the Pokemon as well. Artis isn't really that great because Artis is just Artis, and other routes Artis is much more higher tier, but Bulbasaur has much more better mobility than Artis does. Then, last but not least, is Pikachu. Why is Pikachu S tier? Well, because Pidgey would be able to buy him if he was a normal type, but Pikachu is an electric type. Electric types are strong against a lot of the Pokemon on the server, and the fact that Pikachu isn't even a predator compared to Pidgeotto and Bellsprout and Beedrill. The fact that Pikachu only eats fruits and stuff, and all it needs to do is use electricity to defend itself against Beedrill and Pidgeotto to make them not fly. The fact that the only predators in this entire server are flying builds. There are no actual competitors that can actually beat Pikachu. Unless you go into Gen when Pokemon have been added in Gen. And even with the Generation 4 Pokemon added, they're mostly weaker and lower tier Pokemon, such as Seedot, Spinarak, Radian, and Sumas. The only Pokemon that would be a threat to it would be Ariados, considering it's a poisonous spider. And of course, including the special Pokemon, probably Numel as well. So yes, Pikachu is the best build out of all of the Pokemon in and Gen 1 games, which includes the originals and Yellow, includes the Gen 3 remakes and Gen 7 Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So, this is the final tier list. What do you think are the best builds in all Pokemon? Of course, despite Pidgeotto having higher stats, Pikachu is electric type, which means Pikachu does counter Pidgeotto as well. And also, Pikachu has a decent amount of speed, so it can it can roll agility, boost your speed, just like Pidgeotto. So, what do you think are the best? Okay, now we're done. What do you think are the best Pokemon in Viridian Forest? Do you think there are much better Pokemon in there? Do you think that I sort of included the Gen 4 Pokemon? But to be honest, this tier will be much more larger. But we'll be going over all the Gen 4 Pokemon. But okay, we'll be going over all the Pokemon that have been introduced in Generation 4. The first Pokemon is Hoothoot. Hoothoot is actually a weaker version of the Pidgey build. Why? Because Hoothoot has opted for a nocturnal build. First of all, daytime is longer than nighttime. Hoothoot would probably be around C tier, not D tier, because it's not at the level of Weedle and Kakuna. So it would probably body the worm Pokemon really easily. Next is Noctowl. Noctowl is a would probably be a tier as well. Noctowl is a nocturnal version of Pidgeotto, and it was only found at the night. It is actually pretty common at the night as well, being found 15% of the time. And then next is Seedot. Seedot is a pretty bad build. I would put it in the D tier because at least it's better than Caterpie, because Seedot can at least have some armor to defend himself, and is much more difficult to fight. Next is Spinarak. Spinarak would be in the D tier as well. Spinarak is just a standard run-of-the-mill spider build, which Ariados improves on. And it would probably be the third S tier in the build in the server. Why? Because Ariados is a poison type and he's much more bigger, and he is much more deadlier than Spinarak. Next is Viridian. Ladybug and Radiant. Ladybug and Radiant are pretty weak. Ladybug would probably go in the F tier. Ladybug gets bodied by most of the Pokemon in this server. Radiant is a C tier. Yes, C tier. Next is Shroomis. Shroomis would be a B tier. Shroomis is basically the improved version of Artis. Shroomis is, much more. Shroomis was probably the more improved version of Artis. Since Shroomis can only be found by Headbutt, it's probably found only in trees, high and easier from the Flying type Pokemon. Kricketot is another pretty bad build. It would go in F tier. No explanation why Kricketot is a bad Pokemon. It only wants a few moves. Next is Nubo. Nubo would be another A tier. It would be another S tier. Nubo would easily destroy all the grass types in the forest, being fire type. And most of the Pokemon in this server will be bodied by Nubo. Next is Spoink. Spoink is actually one of the worst builds of all time. If you look at its Pokédex, Spoink cannot stop jumping. And if it stops jumping, it is an instant game over for Spoink. Spoink means, that's why dying as a Spoink is not a good idea. Yes, I actually took the Pokédex into consideration of Spoink. But if you can survive as Spoink, you'll probably have a hard time. Let's switch. Spoink mains, you had your fun times. Next is Budew. Budew is another pretty garbage one. It is another solid F tier Pokemon. And next is Carnivine, which is why I put Bellsprout at B tier. Carnivine is a much more improved version of the Bellsprout build, and is actually a pretty similar build. I would put it at a solid A tier. So that's basically it. So none of the Gen 4 Pokemon are shown here, but I decided to mention them in honorable mentions as well. So that's basically it. Goodbye.